Hey, what's up guys? Gons here for the Face Like the Sun YouTube channel. Ghost in the Shell, 2017 March. It's set to release. They have the transhumanist poster child Scarlett Johansson casted as the main role. And really, it's, in a way, the role that is made for her. This is the quintessential transhumanist film, and I think for me, a lot of the reason why I was so attracted to the topic of transhumanism from the get-go when I started looking into topics on the fringe side of things with conspiracies and, UFOs and aliens and all those crazy topics, transhumanism was very attractive to me. Maybe because my history with anime and Japanese programming in general being very ahead of the curve in terms of philosophical thrillers and psychological thrillers and futurist reflections on how things might be. And in terms of looking into the future, Ghost in the Shell was ahead of its time. It was just a manga that was published in 1989 under the subtitle The Ghost in the Shell, and it wasn't until 1995 when the animated film Ghost in the Shell came out and became a cult classic. I mean, if you haven't seen this film and you're an anime fan, I don't know what you're thinking. It's probably one of the top anime films of all time. And it's really interesting to see that this type of film that's going to have the psychological and philosophical elements to it is going to hit the mainstream, because obviously transhumanism being a very, very big topic that we've been tracking here, and, to a point where some of you guys even said, can you stop talking about transhumanism? We get it, okay? Technology, man, fusing, Bible prophecy, iron mixed with miry clay. We get it, Gons. It's the same thing over and over again. But you got to realize most people aren't really aware of the hidden worldviews that are being expressed with programs and movies and films and stuff like that. So when you look at this, Ghost in a Shell, you have the triangle shape, which is part of the traditional design, which, again, even if you look at the original creator of the Ghost in the Shell, which was Shiro Masamune, and actually that's a pen name for the manga artist allegedly named Ota Masanori. His first works, which he wrote and illustrated, was called Black Magic, and it was published back in 1983, and it was considered cyberpunk, and again, just seemingly ahead of his time. But I wanted to share with you this article here and just quote some sections from it, because it shows why this film is probably going to be very popular, but also continue to propagate ideas of apotheosis from technology, something that Scarlett Johansson has been a part of with films like Lucy and Under the Skin, along with her involvement with the Avengers and everything else. So after talking about how they're really taking the legacy of Ghost in the Shell seriously, which I think most anime fans are going to appreciate about this live-action version, here's what it says in the article, quote, "In Ghost in the Shell, the Major," which is played by Scarlett Johansson, "and the Government Task Force Section 9, interesting that 9 is a number that keeps coming up. We have the 9 who influenced the writing of Star Trek, with the connection to Roddenberry and Dr. Puharich, and there's a whole history there that if you don't know about it, go look it up, you can find it. But basically they channeled these 9 entities who allegedly were the creators of the world. And also, there's tons of movies with the number 9 in it, and it's something that you can research yourself and find. But let me continue with the quote here. So, "The Major and the Government Task Force Section 9 fight cyber crimes in a world where people's brains can be hacked just as easily as a computer. Since the film's premise is more relevant now than when the original movie premiered in 1995, Sanders, who's the director of the film, realized he couldn't just go to the original film and remake it. Quote, "It's too philosophical and too introspective," he said of the 1995 film. "That's what so many people like about it, and I hope we channel that into the film, but hopefully a bigger film around it so people are excited in the cinema and enriched in some way." Interesting that he would use the word channel, right? We always talk about people channeling spirits, and here he is. I know maybe he's not deliberately meaning channeling spirits here, but, in sort of a roundabout way, isn't it interesting that he would say he's going to channel the philosophical and introspective elements of the original 1995 version of the film to this new one? I find it fascinating. And it says here, to do that, the new film borrows facets from all sorts of several different iterations of the franchise, including its movies, various TV series, and Masamune Shiro's original manga, which began the franchise. In the trailer alone, we see multiple shots and scenes lifted from the 1995 movie, most of the main characters and plenty of the action. Paramount screened a scene from the movie where the Major interrogates a man who believes he has a family, but soon realizes they were nothing but a programmed memory. This echoes a scene in the anime where the man is then hacked remotely by the villain known as the Puppet Master. In the live-action version, he'll be hacked by the movie's antagonist, Kuz, played by Michael Pitt, a character taken from an arc in one of the later Ghost in the Shell TV series. So again, taking liberties with the storyline, but it doesn't really matter. There's a bigger issue going on here with the transhumanist propaganda. And I continue here, it says, beyond the action, legacy, and controversy for Sanders and Johansson, Ghost in the Shell boils down to its philosophy, something Sanders described as a fresh take on futurism. Quote, "What I think is interesting about our film is the sovereignty of data," Sanders explains. "What if the personal information on your phone was in your head, and then someone hacked into your head? Not only do they have your contacts, they have your thoughts and emotions, and that's a frightening twist on where we go technologically with the story." And then the article continues, while Ghost in the Shell's exploration of humanity and technology is more relevant than ever, it remains to be seen if it will be enough to rise above the controversial decision to turn the franchise's main protagonist, Major Motoko Kusanagi, into simply the Major. But Scarlett Johansson is optimistic. Scarlett Johansson says, quote, "It's always my hope when making a film that you connect with people in the dark theater and you're able to escape to some other world that we've created for them. My hope for the fans is they get taken on a ride that's not just explosive and exciting, but also allows them to be reflective and more curious about themselves from watching this film. I hope it resonates that deeply with them," end quote. Now, the trailer as published on comicbook.com is pretty interesting. It has the sort of robot at the beginning. You know, the human-robot mesh has already happened in this world, the way they portray it. A lot of these scenes were taken straight from the 1995 original anime film, and I think that's why a lot of the fans of the franchise are going to probably be pretty satisfied with the live-action version because they do stay true to the spirit of the story. But in that, this is another film that really pushes the limit of thought in terms of what it means to be human, what it means to be alive, what it means to have a soul. You know, all these topics that seem to be elusive to a materialist worldview becomes totally relevant when we add the element of technology, and the material world is able to basically create a mimic of man, and we get to a point where we can't tell what's genuinely machine, what's not, but also the sovereignty of data idea. And, you know, if you look at Ray Kurzweil, I quoted him in Age of Deceit 2 at the intro where he says we're going to basically plug the internet into our brains. I mean, that's the whole setup here for something like Ghost in the Shell, where people can hack your mind. And ultimately, biblical prophecy in terms of everybody worshiping the beast. You can't buy or sell unless you take the mark and you worship the beast. This sort of global mindset, this sort of hive mind scenario that is outlined in the Bible is starting to become more and more plausible given these projections of how things might look in the future, the near future. You know, this is set in the mid 21st century, which is, 20, 30 years away. And if the spirit of Antichrist continues to develop the infrastructure necessary to build this platform for the end times and all the stuff that's supposed to happen, and the Lord doesn't return in the next 20, 30, 40 years, I think the world that we will live in will look eerily similar to what's portrayed here in Ghost in the Shell. And the kinds of conflicts may or may not be the kind of things that are dealt with in this film. But rest assured, it's not going to be the whole world. It's going to be, isolated cities like this where you have a heavy population of sentient machines interacting with humans, and, all sorts of abominable things go on. Iron mixing with miry clay, but not cleaving to one another. People worshiping an image. This is where humanity is conditioned to go. And again, it'll be interesting to see how they play on the ethics and morality. And, that's the thing about storytelling. That's the thing about a human writing a story about the future and projecting humanity onto machines. And that's sort of the ultimate deception or subtle deception that's going on here. And it's been going on if you really, really want to think about it deeply. Cartoons even have been conditioning us for supernatural entities. If you really think about it, you know, you have animals that talk, or ghosts, or just any kind of sentient creature that can communicate being portrayed through comic books. Same thing here, though, at a deeper level, is this projection of a machine whose struggle is, in a sense, philosophical. It is a moral issue, an ethical question that is drawn out with the circumstances that surround the main character. And so to create that sympathy or that empathy with that character who is not purely human, right? That's really the conditioning process going on here. That's how deep this goes. And I think it's the spirit of Antichrist. It's not just a remake, okay? The film and the story has been out for a long time, but why are they now remaking it? Well, yeah, the technology and the special effects and everything is caught up to a place where a live action film of something like this can be done. Yes, that's sort of the practical side of things, but also on the spiritual side of things, I think that humanity is being more and more conditioned to accept this kind of stuff. And if you don't think conditioning happens, just look at these last elections and the response in the aftermath. And I hate to bring it up, but it's clear evidence for anybody looking at sociology and social engineering and studying those topics. It is clear evidence that this kind of stuff works. And so the kind of people that really buy into the Ghost in the Shell franchise, even now, maybe more so than before, because before it was just an obscure anime. Now it's a mainstream, big-time Hollywood film. As people buy into this sort of ideology and continue to identify with more than human characters, which again started a long time ago, it's not something new, but you know, we're seeing more and more of it. It's all leading to a place where people will willingly accept the mark of the beast and willingly worship the image of the beast and worship the dragon. And it seems unprecedented, but that's where this is all headed. Thanks for watching this video. Hope you got something out of it. Make sure to like, subscribe, and if you feel you really have to, leave a comment, but be nice. And most importantly, please share this video with your social media friends and family to hopefully start a meaningful discussion about some of these topics that we face today. Have an awesome day, guys. God bless.